And we're live with another episode of SEO Career Mastery. Today we have Lawrence Hitches, the General Manager of the StudioHawk. How are you today, Lawrence?
Very, very good. Today is actually tonight over here. It's a Friday
Oh,
night
tonight.
at 10
Wow.
o'clock. I've just come back from a Halloween party. I'm making this a priority, obviously. Everyone's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I got to go do this webinar. I got to go chat to SEOs for Hire. I got to do it."
Ah,
I'm with
thanks.
that. You've got that's dedication. That is dedication. So, yeah, we'll just kickstart it with a generic question of how did you get into SEO and ended up as general manager of StudioHawk? What was your journey through that?
That's, do you want the long story short or the
Yeah,
sort of
long
mid
story. Let's
long?
go.
So how did I get into it? So I moved to Melbourne about 5 years ago with no real plan. At the time, I was actually working in assessment for search intent with Bing. So I was actually one of the, what do you call it, like the rater quality guideline people, assessors. So I would have the criteria and assess that. And then it was funny because I put SEO specialist on my resume, not knowing what it was technically. And then I interviewed with Harry, the founder of Studio Hawk, just random job ad, knocked on this warehouse door. It turned out to be this co-working space. It was just Harry, and then I interview, and I'm just talking about my experience, and I'm really just sort of just going with the flow. He's asked me really some great questions, and he just said this thing, and it always gets me every time I talk about it, which is like, I want to grow you like a tree. And I was like, great. And then he was like, "Do you want a job?" I was like, "Sick." I was so happy to have a job at that stage. And I started as a junior SEO specialist, 3 days a week. Moved my way up to full time. Moved my way up to being an SEO specialist, senior SEO specialist, SEO director. And then one day he pulls me aside and says, "Hey, you're general manager now." I'm like, cool. So that's that's a abbreviated version, but throughout that time I kind of stepped through levels of doing the most basic things on the website to managing large scale campaigns to now running the agency and running different departments in the agency as well. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey, as simply as you can put it.
Awesome.
Thanks for that.
Something that really interested me was just that your career progression within Studio Hawk itself. Um, and something Studio Hawk does really well is also career roadmaps when employees join. How was that journey for you going from SEO specialist to director and then to general manager? And yeah, can you just take us through a little bit of the differentiation with like the roles and the responsibilities attached and maybe just a bit of the mindset behind it, the mindset shift?
So the mindset shift. So I could say back then it was a lot less structured than it is now because we were a growing
Yeah,
agency, like scaling
yeah.
from. So when I was an SEO specialist, we were about I'd say 10 to 15 people, and I was sort of more of the older person in the agency because I was, number three. So there was no
Mm,
formality behind it. I was working
mm,
on, quite a lot of campaigns at the time, smaller clients. The neediest the neediness level of those particular clients was more based on the relationship level. So when smaller clients, into smaller businesses sign up for SEO, your medical clinics or just small e-com brands, it's a lot more about their relationship and just getting really small wins on the board and growing that over time, and
mm,
communicating, educating. And then as I scaled up into the more of the director role, was running more of the large scale campaigns. So when you're dealing with multiple stakeholders, internal marketing people as well, a lot of
mm,
more communication was required on that
mm,
particular level. And
mm,
also showing results in a different way when the results can be really clear with someone, with a different SEO education level, within a small
mm,
business because they're just trying to grow it. But a marketing manager has a different style and has to communicate different things to their higher upper management to get more buy-in. So being that sort of person in between all of that was, I'd say, the communication part of it. I'm actually a massive introvert. Like, before I had started this role, I never really engaged with people as much as I do now. I got into doing sales. I got into do like a lot of different facets of the agency. I guess that kind of evolved into becoming general manager, where it was more, because I had such a diverse range of skills through the growth of the agency, and also a lot of that
mm,
communication with different people. made
Mm.
sense at the time as well. And then being general manager is just it's quite different because it's more of a business operations role. But because we're only SEO, it still requires a pulse onto what's going on in SEO and still staying hyper relevant, and also keeping my skills very sharp as well. So
Mm.
it's just a different level of SEO experience. But look, and also I can say from a general manager perspective in this role, I now sort of see it's funny when I'm now a client of another service, how I like to be
Mm.
treated as part of that service. That also reflects back and
Mm.
helps me provide good feedback onto what we should be doing to better communicate our value, better retain our services with different clients as well. So yeah, it's just a different magnitude of role, but it goes the same as just communicating with people all day.
100%. Awesome.
And Lawrence, being the GM now, obviously you've probably had to take a step back from being in the trenches with an SEO,
Mhm.
being less hands-on. Do you miss being hands-on in SEO?
Every day. Every day. I try to get into the trenches as much as possible. If someone wants to pull me aside and ask me something, it still gives me the thrill. And it's funny now where you can sort of sit back and just give a few pointers, and that might solve someone's issue. Or I could actually say, I actually don't know this. Can you teach me this as well? So yeah, that's really exciting. And yeah, like I still help out on a lot of the campaigns where I can. I try not to impede and get in the way of the person leading the campaigns, but just be that general support. If I could have the opportunity to dive in there a lot more, I would, but I do have to restrain myself and focus on other priorities as well. But I'd be there in the trenches anytime, anytime anyone said, "Hey, I need you."
Awesome. Have there, this is like sort of a prequel question to the question leading up, but have there been any sort of major career highlights in the past few years? And in leading to that, you recently won the Young Search Professional of the Year award by SEMrush 2021. Can you
Yeah.
take us on a little bit of that journey as well? And in addition to that, any like sort of traits and disciplines that you attribute to that award?
Ooh, good question. So in terms of milestones, that was definitely a one at the time. I actually was
Mhm.
really satisfied and happy to win that because Harry had won that, the founder of the agency. So I thought that was really cool to, earn the same title. That was sort of like he was my mentor, and then the baton passes.
Mhm.
So that was quite satisfying. Yeah, that was a huge milestone. Actually, that was great. But winning the best marketing agencies award, or anything around the agency or the campaigns, is actually really, really fulfilling because it's more about the team and the agency
Mhm.
itself, especially
Mhm.
now in this role, where it's a lot more about how the team works. In terms of the discipline around that, um, like what I really try to focus on is because like SEO is just a skill we do, but it's really about the people that do it. And if they're feeling empowered and learning and growing, that's where I like to really focus on. As much as we have to like performance manage our team and like make sure they're like getting the results for the clients. These are people that if they're really passionate about SEO, that culture really shines through. So creating a culture around SEO. Um,
Mhm.
was really important, and that's what through that early period of me being in a more senior role, that's what I was, that's my wheelhouse, just growing and developing people and learning with them as well, side by side, because I'm not a person that says, hey, I know everything about SEO or everything about business. I'm as much as a
Mhm.
learning person as the team is. When they're learning to do a title tag, I'm learning to read a different set of data that I haven't read before, as part of running the agency as well. So yeah, it's just all a learning experience that we try to bring.
I
Awesome.
love that. And obviously, StudioHawk, everyone knows who StudioHawk is within the SEO industry. But winning the best global large company twice, what's that sort of done for the brand reputation and I suppose client acquisition?
So the brand reputation, like it's really good when people from outside opinions say, hey, you've done really good work, and that's valued
Mhm.
through an award. That's really validating, saying, hey, like we are working so damn hard, and someone's recognized that this has been a great thing. From a brand perspective, that's been great, and it's also great for the team as well to know award is a fun thing to celebrate as well.
Of course.
from brand acquisition, yeah, it's really great to showcase our work, and the case studies that we earn out of that and the examples that we can show through that are great for showing people that may want to work with us the experience that we bring and the results we've driven for a very similar type of project as well. So that's been really great. It's every time we do like the awards and things like that, it's great because out of them we get great stories, and those stories translate to case studies or things that we can communicate as well to current clients or new people that might want to jump on board as well. So it has a very cascading effect. And of course, getting a trophy, that's cool when it comes in the mail and you can hold it and take a nice picture. But we always sort of go, all right, cool. When's the next award show? How can we keep this going as well? We're quite competitive. We're quite quietly competitive around it.
I love
That's
that.
So from the time that you've joined StudioHawk, you mentioned that you were like sort of some of the core members there, and as it's been built and winning a agency award twice now, how has the company culture developed throughout the time, and how important is it, I guess, in within StudioHawk, and I guess your day-to-day structures?
Yeah, so in terms of like how it's changed, so when we started, like when you're starting up in an agency or start a business, let's say, the culture is more built or about building that railroad as you go. It still happens
Mm,
because every time we have a very big growth mindset. So every time we're trying to scale up the
mm,
business, it's learning new things or implementing a new thing that might facilitate that growth as well. Which
yeah.
right now it's a very lagging effect. Like anything I do in my role now has a 6 month, it's actually like kind of like SEO. It takes about 6 months
Mm,
for it to really kick in if we change
yeah.
some structure. The
Mm,
cultures in terms of that, we've really stayed the same in terms of a growth set mentality as well. But, a couple months ago, we really landed on this term or this mantra about the wholesome nerd. We find that people who are quite wholesome, generous, supportive, but also quite nerdy about whether it be
mm,
SEO or whether it be a personal hobby. If we find someone that's really passionate about something that in almost like a geeky way, it really translates and like it really connects with our culture as well. And I can say that from Harry, Anthony, we're all really passionate about weird things, but also
mm,
can translate that passion to just doing right by people in terms of SEO and being quite generous and essentially wholesome about it. We're
mm,
not a big party agency. We know there's agents out there that love showing, hey, we have like a great Friday night drinks, but we do that stuff as well. But beneath all that, there's like a gaming culture, there's a competitive sports culture. We've got our own futsal team, so we like doing activities as a group as well. So that's part of our culture
mm,
that's developed out of that as well. In terms of how that structures out, we have multiple SEO teams and essentially in multiple pods, and each of them has their own little personality and their own team name as well.
wow,
We have
that's
like the
cute.
do, yeah, we have like the do follow dogs. That's one of our
Yeah.
teams, and each one of them has their own little unique personality, but it's the same common thread that everyone's quite wholesome and everyone's quite
Mm.
geeky and nerdy.
I love that. I love that you summed it up to that, like geeky and nerdy, but also like has their own passion. That's such a awesome way to summarize it. But also, who sort of initiates the company culture ideas, like breaking up into teams and stuff like that? Is that like sort of just a team effort of coming up with ideas, or um, does that, I guess, fall on a specific person's shoulders?
So in terms of that, the ideas really come from, well, they come from everywhere, really. Like in terms of the great ideas we had, they can come from someone that's just started to someone that's been around for ages. So
Mm,
in terms of like the SEO teams, it was more like a natural progression because as a company grows, org chart
mm,
of the organization becomes quite important, and we've learnt
mm,
that in tricky ways because. If you get the org chart right around a specific department, and I'm not saying we have perfected this and we're always developing it,
mm,
it just maximizes the efficiency. So if we had an SEO team that was just under, let's say one person and they were managing 20 SEO specialists, they've got 20 people they need to be mindful of. When you break that down
mm,
into teams of 6, it's a lot easier to manage and just make sure everyone's rocking up to work on time, everyone's clocking off when they should. If there's a
yeah,
roadblock, they can jump in there as well. So it creates
yeah.
those lean touch points for people as well. Um, and yeah, in terms of how we do that, like yeah, a lot of the team's ideas that we roll out through the agency, we take that as a management team, and we have a head of people and culture that's really focused on making sure our culture has great initiatives behind it and people are engaged with the
Mm,
workplace.
mm.
But each department has their role to play in that as well.
Okay, awesome. And sorry, just to end off with the team structure question. Do you have an ideal team structure? And I guess, is that already in place with StudioHawk? And what is your team structure like in StudioHawk?
So in terms of team structure, I'll just talk about the SEO team because it's the larger team
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
So we have a head of operations that runs essentially that SEO team structure with 4 sub teams underneath that as well, and each team has a team leader and a senior SEO specialist. About
Okay.
3 SEO specialists and potentially 1 to 2 junior SEO specialists, so people that are being trained from the ground up to be an SEO specialist. The SEO specialists are either leading to be a senior SEO specialist or an SEO team leader. Those different pathways, team leader is more focused on the performance and management of the team. The senior SEO specialist focuses on those hardcore, big, complex campaigns that require that absolute focus. And we found that diverging pathway works quite well because some people really like the people side and the management side. Other people just really want to work on crazy, complex campaigns and get the thrill out of that. So we try to cater to that pathway as well.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's how we structure our teams, and I think that adds a good diversity where you have a good balance of someone who's really technically, let's say technically SEO focused, but also someone that's a good mediator and facilitator for the team and can bring the team together and keep the team moving forward.
Awesome.
Perfect, Lawrence. And I'm just going to move over to the side a wee bit. So, recently we created the SEO interview blueprint. It's like a free document we've done, but a part of the section that which I believe you would have a brilliant insight into would be we discussed SEO translation. So essentially, if you're client facing, say you're an account manager and you have to discuss potentially to get a new client or a current client, how SEO terms will benefit that client to someone that doesn't understand SEO. So you can't really talk the SEO lingo to say. And you coming from a sales background, do you have any tips on maybe someone stepping up in the role, how they can effectively communicate to current clients, new clients in regards to how SEO will benefit them, but translating it from SEO to a more, it's usually monetary value or whatever, but something like in a translation?
So like translating that, I think if you nail the fundamentals in explaining like SEO to someone, try and explain it to someone who has no idea, let's say a grandparent, like someone who doesn't experience the internet day to day. If you nail that fundamental part, that's really key. That especially works for people who are essentially are trying to grow their business. They don't have the time to learn a lot about SEO because they got to focus on what they're good at.
Exactly.
Let's call it like another layer to that is when someone does know their business is really what do you call it, like organic search is a really fundamental part of their marketing strategy, and they haven't maybe unintentionally they've done that. I've seen websites that leverage about 80% of their traffic comes from organic just because that's the way they didn't intend to do that, but they've started ranking well and getting a lot of business from it. They didn't really know that what they were doing, so taking them and educating them as to why that's a great thing, and they don't have the expertise to take what they currently got and really take it to the next level. And then a layer up from that, in terms of like communication styles and translating those ideas, is when we're talking to like marketing managers, CMOs, you get down to the real data piece of it, which requires, and I know it's a very complex topic, but forecasting out for SEO is something that I think is a necessary evil sometimes, where forecasts can't actually predict exactly what's going to happen, because you could create this really great forecast and Google changes the goalposts. It does an algorithm update, which does it it makes it so that
Of
forecast
course.
doesn't play out, but it's only assumption might happen. So you do have to, we can do it, and we do that on, obviously on request, but we have to caveat that so much to say, look, this is just an assumption, and make sure that's a really conservative approach, because you don't want to forecast out, yeah, we can take your positions to number one. Anyone who can guarantee that, it's obviously obviously either they've figured out something and they've got an insider they can tell them to do that, tell them how to get there. But that has to have a lot of expectation setting. That's what I'm really getting to when we talk about SEO, especially on a really high level. It's about setting that expectation and more talking about the process of getting there and the vision behind it, than talking about you're currently making this amount of money, you will objectively make this amount of money in a year's time if you invest this level. It's we can say that, but then obviously we're setting like a really high benchmark. We can set KPIs to get there, but there's a lot of road mapping and expectation setting beneath that that we try to do.
love that, Lawrence. Thank you very much. And obviously, you started off with SMEs, and now you're on the enterprise level. Is there, well, obviously there is, but would you like to highlight maybe the gap in between the two for people making the similar switch themselves, what to expect when jumping up the enterprise level clients, and maybe how to handle objections and just work
Mhm.
within that field altogether?
Yeah, I think that the major switch up between SMEs and enterprise, I think at the baseline, you're working with people, and people fundamentally want to work with people they like. So obviously, what I find works really is just if you're passionate about it this year, it's quite easy to, let's say, sell the idea, because people can tell by your expression and the way you talk about it. It's like you obviously care about this thing a lot, and you wouldn't be caring about it so much if you didn't believe it was something really great.
Agreed.
So that's number one. I think when you're trying to play on the wavelength of a small business, that's someone who's really trying to grow. That they're really growth
Mhm.
orientated, and they don't know how potentially how to get there without the help and support. So being really supportive in nature, and being a almost like a like being holding their hand through that process as well, and being quite attentive to their needs. We often call our clients quite frequently just to check in and see how they're doing, not just from a SEO perspective, but personally as they're
Personally.
trying to grow their business and brand. When you get to more that enterprise level, you have to realize that it's not just them; it's a wider team. You may be talking to someone day to day, but they have maybe 100 other people in that company that maybe have a micro piece of input into that particular SEO strategy or
Yeah.
impact on what may happen as well. And they also have their higher ups that they have to report to. So breaking down and really making it quite simple for them to communicate those ideas, and you're the backup. You have to have their back in those certain situations as well, because if SEO is going really great, you need to communicate those wins, so that person internally looks great and we look great as well. But but also
Mm.
if things aren't going well, getting deep in the trenches and making sure, especially with a large scale website, because the magnitude of some of these websites can be millions of URLs. One thing may
Mhm.
go wrong, and we have to investigate and be ready to jump in and get in there and figure that out quite quickly. So if we can turn that around in 24 hours and figure out an issue, something that happens all the time is, even like large scale websites, you'd think they would have more, I guess, duty of care around these things, but they may no index their websites just randomly through just a random person just forgetting to not do that or making that mistake. And if you can identify that within several hours, you've just potentially saved maybe hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of dollars of revenue for that website, just by being there and setting up the right
Mhm.
practices, setting up the right alerts behind that website. So just being on it is what I'm saying. Helps out everyone.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I have a question, just bringing it back into Studio Hawk and the team structure. Do you have any something that I appreciated a lot about Studio Hawk as well is that you guys do the Hawk Academy
Mhm.
and bringing juniors in and really nurturing them up to be part of the team and the larger goals at Studio Hawk. Um, are there any bits of advice that you would give to younger SEOs that are looking, or anyone that is looking to get into SEO? Yeah, that would help upskill them, or yeah, help them maybe guide them into a specific niche that would give them clarity on what niche they would like to go into, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I think if I could rewind my SEO journey, and give myself advice, from
Yeah.
experience now in the future, it would be, starting up your own website. Um, I think the validation that comes from starting up even just a small blog, and then picking a keyword and just trying to rank for it, trying to
Mm,
do it in your own way as well, not following a set process. And even if that position got to position 10 on Google, just bottom of the first page, I think you would be able to, pat yourself on the back and say, hey, I think I figured out how this works. And obviously taking that to, let's say the top three would be amazing. And also ranking that, for multiple keywords would be incredible as well. But if I could rewind that and start up a couple websites and just tinker around, test out ideas as well. There's no exact set playbook around SEO. So taking multiple sources and just finding what works for you, I think engages the mindset, because you can learn all the
mm,
fundamentals quite easily, either through like, let's say, Art Hawk Academy or the great resources that are out there online. But implementing
mm,
itself, it just taps into that brain space, and it also grows your confidence as well. And then going to a lot of these SEO conferences that are on as well. Education is great. Collaborating and finding people in the community that you connect with and can talk about SEO almost quite frequently, let's say every single day, just helps that culture, around you start developing and building, and essentially sitting around like-minded people. I wish I'd done that like a lot more when I was a younger SEO. I think that would have helped my journey and potentially upskilled me a little bit quicker. I'm so glad with the journey I took, and I still learned a lot of things along the way. But just those two things I wish I did it quite early on. So that's the advice I would give.
Awesome. Jay?
Perfect. And you sort of answered the question I was going to ask. So I was going to discuss personal branding and, the fact that you come on the podcasts and speak at seminars. And I was going to ask how that boosted your career and creating that personal brand around yourself. StudioHawk are phenomenal at it as well. You see them at events all the time. There's always people attending podcasts, and it's just the positive effect that would have not only on your SEO career, but I suppose your overall career.
Yeah. So like the personal brand stuff, I think just comes out of nature of trying to, just be supportive and help people. And actually always, I think deep down I always wanted to be a teacher or a lecturer at like a university for some weird reason.
Very good.
So it's just I don't mind talking to people. And the speaking opportunities that we've been able to get along, even for myself personally, like getting on that stage and talking about it, people always want to see, oh, you must not get nervous. Of course I get nervous. I'm a human being. Like I've taken my nerves from being worried about being on stage to not being worried about that. But when you're on stage, it can be quite intimidating. But I think what I really try to leverage is I'm really passionate about SEO, so it's quite easy to talk about it. So getting those opportunities is obviously amazing. And I think the main thing is just confidence. Like when you're quite confident in the things that you've done previously, it's a lot easier to put that post out on LinkedIn or do that speaking opportunity because you've done it before and you can really back yourself in that sense. And if you go up there and really showcase your stuff, or if you do a lot of stuff around your personal branding, it just helps fuel and also challenges yourself to get better, because then you start playing in a different field and then you see what other people are doing. You're like, oh, I need to educate myself to get to that level so I can start posting or talking about these things. I think it's a really good driving motivator that links back to one of our core values, which is just continuous growth and learning as part of the agency. Like if there's any challenge or any way to learn, it's just in absorbing that information every day and just finding ways to deliver that in your own style.
Awesome.
Lawrence, thanks very much.
Jay, your question, and Lawrence, your answer sort of led me to my next question a little bit.
Perfectly set up.
You recently spoke at the Digital Marketers event recently. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went? And like a few of the benefits, I guess, or highlights from the event, and also your talk as well. Can you take us through a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was really fun. So it was hosted down here, Digital Marketers Australia. It's been in Melbourne, but this first time is in the Gold Coast, so a bit of a change up. Sunnier location, which is really cool. Great room, great speakers. What I found really cool is over the years, SEO has been a growing industry in Australia, but I think one of the highlights for me was seeing that there were 4 SEO talks on that day. Usually I'm the only person, if I'm at the event speaking, talking about it. There's only ever one talk, but they had 4. We had a panel, we had different speakers talking about SEO, so different views of it amongst all the other great talks that were on. So that was quite validating about us being in quite a growing space. And I talked through a lot about what Google's up to with SGE, how that impacts the helpful content update as well, talking about entities, talking about topical authority, just giving like as brief but detailed overview of those ideas as well. And from a strategy perspective, what I start thinking about these days is when we talk about culture, a culture behind SEO makes results come easier, I find. So when I'm thinking about, we're talking to people that we want to work with as well, if they have a great internal culture about SEO, I always get the inkling that, okay, I think we can get better results out of that. Then we have to build in a culture of SEO, which we can do. But obviously, I think that when you have a team that really cares about it as an agency, but also internally, you have people that really care about SEO, the results just come quite easily. There's no friction behind that, and everything becomes just a lot better and feels more successful. So that's what I talked about at that particular speech.
Awesome. Was it a one-day event, like just full of talks?
It was a 2-day event.
Two-day event.
Yeah, 2-day event. Lots
Okay.
of talks. It was a great one. I think the next one's coming up next year in Melbourne again.
Okay, awesome.
Perfect. Well, that about wraps it up. Were you looking to ask another question there, Fred, just before we finish?
No.
Look,
We hit the 30-minute mark.
yeah, no, that's perfect. So we'll let Lawrence get back to the Halloween party or to bed, just depending which path he chooses. But thank you
So
very
I
much
feel,
for
yeah.
coming on today and taking the time out of your night to come on and
Yeah,
speak to
thanks
us.
so much.
Really
No
appreciate it.
problem. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been great.
All the best, Lawrence. Thank you very much.